Welcome to day 4 of the 30 Days Soul Reboot series. Today we confront one of the most pervasive barriers to spiritual and personal growth: fear. I know yesterday, day 3, we worked with releasing emotional bondage, but I thought we could isolate one emotion that has been an emotion of the ages. It's been the silent thief of dreams, the invisible wall that keeps us from stepping into our God-given purpose. Yet fear doesn't just block us. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we see others, and the possibilities ahead. But here's the truth: fear is not your destiny. As we go through this session today, I want you to remember that you were created with and for courage. We are reminded time and time again in the Bible, even if you're not a Christian. And by the way, the Bible is not, in my opinion, it's a psychological book. And it's written over and over again in the Bible that fear not. Why? Because we are so close to God. We are one with God. And that will be another session. But God's breath is our life. God walks with us. And when I'm talking about God, I'm not talking about an infinite being. I'm not talking about something like a person. People disappoint. People break our hearts. But I'm talking about an infinite frequency or whatever. I don't even know what name to call it. But that being, for a lack of way to call it, that created all universes, all valleys, all diamonds, all minerals, all orbits, the sun, the moon, the stars. That is the God that breathed in us when we're just born and ground, and then we became living beings. Can you imagine that our breath is the breath of God, which also means that God is our life? So if we know this truth and we start believing it, then there is no reason why we should be afraid. You know, this is your moment to reclaim your power and take one bold step towards freedom. When you change your beliefs, you change your life. And today we'll unmask fear, understand its roots, and learn how to overcome it with faith, practical tools, and the unshakable promises of God. And I'm not talking about that God in the sky. No. I'm talking about the God that I just told you, the one whose breath is your life. That means the God in you. And if fear has been holding you back, this is your invitation to let it go and embrace the abundant life waiting for you. Now let's dive into understanding fear. Fear often begins as a thought. It might stem from a past trauma, a future uncertainty, or even an imagined scenario. You know, our creativity, we visualize and imagine fear. When left unchecked, fear spirals into an emotional and physical response that can hinder our ability to think clearly or act wisely. Now, there are 2 types of fear. The healthy fear. This is the survival mechanism. It keeps us from walking into traffic or putting ourselves into harm's way. Now, we are speaking especially today about the unhealthy fear. This type of fear limits us. It convinces us we are not capable, unworthy, or destined to fail. This is the fear we must confront and overcome. Some of the fears that you might be dealing with, and everybody deals with, and I've also dealt with some fears, are categorized broadly into the following: the fear of failure, anxiety about meeting expectations or achieving goals. So you are so afraid of failure. So you know what you do? You don't take action because you're like, I don't want to take action because I'm afraid to fail. So you see, fear has literally robbed you your joy and ability to experience the process and grow and learn from it, because you have projected, visualized, and literally created fear, that created an event that doesn't even exist yet, which is failure, and because you are afraid. But we also have to remember that fear has kids, fear has children, fear is a parent. Fear is like this big tree with branches. The moment you become afraid, then things like stress, envy, jealousy, bitterness, self-doubt, so low self-esteem, all those are children of fear. And fear has a way of convincing us to play it small. That's another child of fear. So fear has relatives, you all. So if you're entertaining fear, you're entertaining a tribe of other negative relatives. Now let me go into the types of fear, some of the things that we're afraid. Let me continue. The fear of rejection. That was one of my biggest fears. I was so afraid of being rejected. I wanted to fit in. I wanted people to like me and appreciate me. But the more I longed for people to like and appreciate me, the more they resented me, because I was needy. And so I was so afraid of being judged or excluded by others. And guess what happened? I was judged and excluded by others. Are you experiencing that type of fear? And then we have the fear of the unknown, and is about uncertainty and unfamiliar situations. But if you are afraid of the unknown, you will never take chances. You will never enjoy the thrill of taking risks. You will never enjoy the thrill of getting onto that big roller coaster you've never jumped on, and feeling the thrills of going up and down. You will never go on this new trip or enjoy a new talent or try a new business or try dating or relating with people you've never dated with, because these are things you don't know. So you see how fear blocks you from experiencing and welcoming diversity. I think one of the child of fear is racism, isolation and rejecting others. So when we are afraid and we tend to negate what we don't know. We are afraid of the unknown. So you see someone who is different from you, and guess what? You put them in a box because you are afraid that there might be something dangerous. And then the fear of loss. Sometimes we hold on so tight to what we have because we are so afraid of losing it, and also losing our loved ones, possessions, and stability. The fear of loss is so real, you all, and that is a fear that we can learn how to deal with or detach from and let go. And then the other fear is the fear of change, resistance to transitions, even positive ones, due to fear of the unfamiliar. It takes us back to the fear of the unknown. When you're so afraid of change and you're holding on to something that's literally killing you, that, for instance, you're in a relationship that is literally killing you, like your partner is abusive, your partner, you no longer get along, but you're so afraid that, you die like this old lady or old gentleman with a few cats, and you'll be the only one in your neighborhood with these cats. So you just hold on to the serpent just because you're drowning. You hold on to what you don't want just because you don't know what else is out there for you. Or you are in this job that is literally killing you. You don't have a life. You really don't have a life, but you hold on to this job because you're afraid of change. You don't know what else is out there. You don't want to change your ways. Can you imagine how we sometimes, because we are afraid of change, we deal with pain? We would rather deal with pain than change. You would rather deal with that anger than change, because you are so used to it and you know how to deal with it. It's been in you for so long. So you don't see yourself living without that anger. You don't see yourself changing from the behavior, believing the anger, or being your truth and being joyful. So the fear of change is one of the most self-retarding fears known. And of course, the fear of death, the fear of public speaking, anxiety about speaking or performing in front of an audience, of course, the fear of judgment, and then the fear of heights, that was one of mine, the fear of criticism, the fear of failure in relationships. So, for instance, if you've been in bad relationships and you're like, I'm not getting into any other relationships because the other one really hard. Can you imagine? So you don't really want to get into another relationship because the other one really hard. You don't know about the new relationship that you're going to get into. So you continue sabotaging yourself because you're afraid that that new relationship will fail and you'll get hurt. So even if you feel like, oh no, you know what? I want a new relationship. But because you're afraid of failing, that is the projection. That is the vibration you're projecting into the world. And whatever you project out into the world, that's exactly what you will experience. And then, of course, the fear of illness or injury, the fear of being alone. And the funny one, the most funny one, it's hilarious, the fear of success. Can you imagine that sometimes we are afraid of being successful? You're afraid of having a lot of money because you've had all these stories that when you have a lot of money, people, they'll come and steal it. Or people might target you and kill you. Oh my God. So all these fears are literally delusional. All right. Now, let's go deeper into the biblical perspective of fear. Now, if you don't believe in the Bible, no problem. I already told you that I use the Bible as the greatest psychological book ever written. Now, the Bible addresses fear repetitively from Genesis to Revelations. We find encouragement and commands to trust in God rather than succumb to fear. Here are some key verses to anchor your faith. Isaiah 41:10. So, do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And in Psalms 23 verse 4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I'll fear no evil, for you're with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And then 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Listen, the guy told you, like, God is not a guy, but let's just call him a guy, okay? Has told you that do not fear. I am with you, okay? Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. That breath that you take is confirmation that God is in you, that life is in you. So there is no need. Once we know the truth sets us free from everything, from all delusions of this world. That's why knowing, being reborn into your truth, into your true identity will help you overcome all fears and all human created delusions. And I'll continue. One of the most iconic stories of overcoming fear is the story of David and Goliath. Goliath was a towering giant who terrified the entire Israel's army. Yet David, a young shepherd boy, faced him without armor or advanced weaponry. David's confidence didn't come from his strength, but from his faith in God. He declared, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Palestine. That is in 1 Samuel 17:37 in the Bible. David's victory reminds us that no matter how difficult, no matter how horrible, terrifying our fears may seem, they are no match to the power of faith. Faith is more powerful than fear, okay? Faith, as small as a mustard seed, will move a mountain. Now, I don't know, I've never heard about fear as small as a mustard seed, but you know what? Whatever you give your power to will be more powerful for you. Okay, so if you give a lot of your power to faith, then it will move your mountains. If you give a lot of your power to fear, then it will amplify your mountains. So whatever you choose, that is what you experience. All right, so let's get into a step-by-step, simple step-by-step process to confront and conquer your fear. Number one, acknowledge your fear. Get that notebook once again and write down all the fears that you have, because ignoring fear doesn't make it go away. Once you admit that you are afraid and understand why you are afraid, then you realize, you know what, this might be a story I'm telling about myself. And the idea also is to ask yourself the validity of your fears. Do you have facts? Do you have evidence to support that fear? If you are afraid that you won't be liked, have you spoken to any of those people and have they really convinced you that they won't like you? And let's imagine they said, you know what, we won't like you. We don't like you. So what? Why would you give your power to external validation to determine how you feel? So it goes back to your own self-mastery. So what if people don't like you? So if you're afraid of failure, how do you know that you will fail? Have you really gone into the future and retrieved the facts, and you really are 100% sure and certain that you fail, and you actually have the facts? If you don't have the facts, then you let go of your fear to fail. Whatever fear you have, if you have any evidence, trust me, that evidence is old-fashioned. It's historic, because all fear is projected to a future. I'm afraid to do that. I'm afraid this might happen again. I'm afraid of heights. So you are afraid of a future event. So unless you have evidence of that future, that fear is null and void. And I'm talking about the unhealthy fear. I'm not talking about the healthy fear where, if I touch fire, I'll burn. No. I'm not talking about that fear. I'm talking about the unhealthy fear where you have no evidence. So write down all your fears and go through each one of them and find evidence that supports your fear. And then step number two is you're going to shift your focus. When fear comes, you shift your focus to faith. Fear thrives when we magnify the problem. Maybe you are experiencing a problem right now, or obstacles. Maybe you're single and you're so afraid that you will die, you may never attract love. The more afraid you are of your problem, the more it's magnified. But you have to remember your true nature and the purposes of God, the promises of God. If you don't believe in God, you have to reframe your own convictions and change them, and develop new beliefs and new stories that empower you instead of retard you. But if you believe in God, remind yourself of His promises and faithfulness. In Psalms 34:4, He says, I sought the Lord and He answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. You will realize that the Bible is kind of like almost a storybook, symbolic. Nothing is really straightforward. The Bible is to us as we are to ourselves. So it's telling us here that when you seek God within you, you will realize that you have nothing to be afraid, because God gives peace beyond understanding. And then step number 3 is to take action. Fear loses its grip when we move forward. Start small, manageable steps. Each step builds confidence and reduces the power fear holds over you. So if you're afraid of failure, take a step towards whatever you're afraid of failing at. If you're afraid of success, move forward anyway and see if you really, really, really fail. And you see if success is painful. And then step number 4 is practice gratitude. Fear often comes from focusing on what we lack or what might go wrong. Gratitude shifts our perception to what we have and what's going well. Keep a gratitude journal to remind yourself of God's blessings. In that very notebook, write down the things that you're grateful for, and you realize that you are truly, truly blessed. And some of the things that really liberate us and save us are so simple. It's like telling yourself, you know what, I'm blessed. And then you'll soon believe it, and then you'll start celebrating. Some of the things the solutions that we need sometimes, actually all the time, the beginning steps are so simple. You just have to talk to yourself differently. Reframe your negative into positive. When you are afraid, just tell yourself, you know what, I got this. I am strong. I am faithful. I have courage. Even if I have fear, I'm moving forward. So you speak to yourself differently. You tell yourself a different story, and you move forward and you go on. But we've been convinced and persuaded and told that everything we feel is the truth and it's permanent, but it's not. We can change it. Now, the affirmations for courage for today are: first of all, speak these affirmations daily to build your faith and confidence. I am strong and courageous because God dwells within me. I am strong and courageous because God dwells within me. Fear has no power over me because I trust in God and His promises. Okay, again, the 2 affirmations today are: I am strong and courageous because God dwells within me. Fear has no power over me because I trust God who dwells within me. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean, watching as the waves crash against the shore. The ocean represents life, filled with both beauty and challenges. Fear is like the storm that rages on the water. While it may seem overwhelming, remember that storms do not last forever. Behind every storm is the calm, and beyond the horizon lies new opportunities. Just as Jesus calmed the storm for his disciples, God in you, Christ consciousness, which is your divine oneship with God, can calm the storms in your life. If you know who you are in God and who God is in you, you will never be afraid. You have the strength within you to rise above fear. Think of your fear. Think of every fear you face as an opportunity to grow, to deepen your faith, and to unlock new levels of courage. Remember, you're not alone. God is your refuge, your strength, and your ever-present help in times of trouble. God is not a human. God is not a man. God is not a woman, so He will never disappoint you. God doesn't change. God is limitless. God never runs out of solutions. Now let the words of Nelson Mandela inspire you. He said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. You too, my friend, can be that brave person. Face your fears with faith, and you will emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Overcoming fear is a journey, not a one-time event. Remember that fear does not define you, your faith does. Just as David in the Bible that I just told you about conquered Goliath, and countless others have triumphed over their fears. You too have the strength to overcome. You can overcome all your giants. With faith in yourself as small as a mustard seed and in God, you can overcome. You can move all mountains. Trust in God, you guys. And I'm not talking about that God in the sky or what the religious people tell us about. No, God in you. Take small steps and watch as fear fades into faith. Let these words resonate in your heart. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you, nor forsake you. That is in Deuteronomy 31:6 in the Bible. All right, you guys, so that was day 4, overcoming fear. And see you in day 5, where we'll continue with the 30 Days Soul Reboot series. Until then, I'm sending you abundant love from my heart to yours. Peace and blessings.